Hello, welcome back to a new YouTube video. My name's Katie, I'm a full-time artist, and last August I started a daily art challenge, and every 2 weeks here on YouTube I do a roundup of the art that I've created. I also post them daily over on Instagram. So we're recapping weeks 44 and 45 of the daily art challenge, so we are coming up to the end of it, and I'm really happy with the work that I've created. I definitely feel like week 44 was a little bit safe, but I think with daily art challenges, sometimes you get those ebbs and flows. So I'm just going to get straight into the video. Day 258 was in my A5 or talent sketchbook, and this is, I think, about halfway through now, so we are getting through this quite quickly. So these were prep paintings for some larger pieces that I'm doing. I've got an exhibition, a group one this summer, and I was trying to work out what I'm painting, and you'll see a couple of these prep pieces in the daily art challenge. So for these two, you can see that I was testing views. They're exact same materials and things. I started with an acrylic pink base, which I know I'm definitely going to be doing, but I wasn't sure on the exact views that I'm going to be painting big scale. So the actual exhibition paintings I'm going to be painting are, I think, around A2 size, so they're a lot bigger than this. But I do find that these prep paintings really help because they help me work out composition and colouring and layout. These are done with gouache mostly, so obviously I've got the acrylic base paint and then gouache on top. So it kind of sits on the top of that acrylic base painting, but I'm happy with the colours. These were really quick. They're very kind of loose and messy. I haven't added loads and loads of details on because they are mostly for composition. And like I said, this was really helpful for me to then move on to my larger paintings. Day 259 is a spread which you've already seen if you watched my most recent video, and that is this spread which I did from MapCrunch, which is a random Google Maps generator, and it took me to Croatia. So if you want to see the process for this one, then like I said, it was last week's video, so I'll link that up in the cards. And that's the one where I talk about style, because for this one, it didn't feel very me. I was trying something new. So I was very inspired by the artist Santi Salas. And I'm really happy with how it turned out, despite the fact that it's very different for me. I often work in panels, that's the way I feel most comfortable. So it did feel like it was out of my comfort zone to draw out of panels and to create in a way that was a lot less structured. I didn't go in with a plan or sketch these out beforehand, so these were just sort of more organic than how I normally work. And I'm really pleased with the colour palette. It's quite muted, but I really love the tones of this one. I really like the shades of green and how it sits with the blue, and also that like pop of orange. The view that MapCrunch gave me was like quite a barren sort of area in Croatia, and I just sort of spun the camera a few times to find these different views. And I think they work really nicely as a spread. Obviously you can tell it's the same place, so I think that works for a spread like this. And yeah, I just really like the looseness. It was a really fun one to create, and I'm really happy that I filmed it at the same time, because whenever I try and film something I always worry that it will go wrong. So I was really happy that this turned out to be a really lovely spread to do. Day 260, I was in my larger A4 talent sketchbook, and this one felt very different for me. It kind of felt a little bit risky for my daily art challenge. Now, like I mentioned in my style video, I do just draw and paint whatever I want, and that's how I've managed to keep up the momentum for this daily art challenge. But this one did feel a little bit random. I just filled the entire spread with colourful tropical fish. And these were really fun and easy to do. I really enjoy creating in this way. I just throw a lot of paint on the page and sort of mix on the page rather than on the palette. Again, I don't sketch first, I put down the paint and then I put on all the details and sort of bring them to life. So they're not like perfect in terms of their shape or anything, or even their colouring, but I really love the way of working where you put the paint down first and then you find the shape within that. I think it really adds a lot of life, and I'm really happy with the characters of a lot of these fish. I think my favourite is this red discus because I really like the pattern there, but I'm really pleased with like the colours of the spread. Again, it does feel a little bit random in my sketchbook, but I really enjoyed creating this one, which is the whole point. And I'm really trying not to get bogged down in what Instagram wants and just doing what I feel like doing that day. And this was actually quite popular on Instagram anyway, so it definitely is better to do what you want, because I think that does come through in the daily art. So from a large sketchbook to a little one, this again is Royal Talons and it's 12 by 12 centimetres. And day 261, I was back on day 2 of my Swiss road trip. So this is a virtual road trip I'm doing around Switzerland, and I try and make it as interactive as possible and do polls and things on my stories to try and decide the views that I'm going to draw that day. And this time we were in Lucerne, and the first view that we did was of this bridge here, and then the second was up in the mountain. So I'm really happy with how these two sit together. This one on the right is definitely my favourite piece. This one just feels a little bit too muted, and I wasn't very happy with how I'd done the background. It just didn't seem to be as colourful as I wanted. So I really ramped up the saturation on the one on the right, and that's definitely more me. Obviously there's a lot more greenery, but I did tie in a little bit of the red here with the flowers and then a cogwheel train. So the poll for this one was to decide if we were going up Mount Pilatus on the, I think it's the steepest cogwheel railway in the world, or via cable car. And it was the cogwheel railway that won out, and I was really happy because I really love how the red stands out against the green. I really also like the warm hues that I've added, with the yellow trees here. And yeah, I was really happy with the spread in the end, but when I was doing the first one, I was feeling a little bit unconfident. But I think together it balances out really nicely with the nature and then the city view. Day 262, I was back again in my A4 sketchbook, and this was another easy one. Like I said, week 44 did feel a little bit safe because I wanted to do just what I felt like, and I didn't really push my creativity massively. And it was the same for this one, and I just filled the spread with chickens. So it's kind of similar to the fish one, where I just didn't sketch again, just put the paint down and made the shapes that I'd seen from the reference images, which I'll put all the reference images for everything I've created down below in the description. But I really love working in this way. I really enjoy mixing the colours on the page, and it was surprising to me how many colours these chickens had. And it was just a really nice way to fill a page with lots of lovely colours. And then I went in with details, so I went in with Neocolours and Prismacolor pencils and just defined some more of the feather shapes, some more of the patterns, and also added the feet and the beaks and the eyes. And I don't think I really captured the eyes very well, but I don't think it matters because it's quite a loose page. I wasn't sure when I added on these little grass details. I mostly wanted to ground them so that they didn't look like they were floating, and I'm not sure how successful that was. But as a whole spread, I think it's really nice, and I think it would make a really lovely repeating pattern. This one actually did incredibly well on Twitter. This one got over 25,000 likes over there. So clearly, these little chickens were popular, and I do think it would make a lovely fabric, but I don't think it would work as well as a print. But definitely something that I enjoyed and could do more of, because this was a really quick spread and it didn't take very much brain power. Day 263 was the last one for week 44, and I created these thumbnails in my A5 Talons sketchbook again, and these were for my exhibition paintings. So this has got really dirty, so apologies that it's dirtier than it looks in the original photo, but I forgot to put a piece of paper in between the pages when I was working on the next spread, so a lot of the Neocolours have transferred. But this was a really nice spread for me to do. Mitch and I had been on a walk the night before to this marina, and I know I want to do an exhibition painting of this place, but I wasn't sure which view to do. So I just took all of the photos that I'd taken from that evening and then drawn very quick thumbnail sketches like this, and I used gouache to map out the shapes again, and then I went on top with Prismacolor pencil and a little bit of Neocolour. And this was the day of my Patreon live stream, so I did take 2 of these and painted them larger. So this wasn't part of, or I haven't posted it as the daily art, but this is another piece that I did, and this was painted live on my Patreon, and I do that every couple of months. But this was the main spread that I posted, and it was really useful for me, again, in the way that I was doing the other ones of working out composition and colour. And I really like some of these, but I knew that it wouldn't necessarily work bigger. So this just really saves me time and also paper and paint. And it also creates a really nice spread in my sketchbook. One of the things I want to do for the exhibition, because I'm doing so much prep work, is to create a little book that people can look through whilst they see the bigger paintings, because I feel like it would be nice to show all of the work that led up to those bigger pieces, and it would also be nice to show some of these thumbnail sketches and how it started and then how it finished. Kicking off week 45 and day 264, I actually did a plein air drawing piece in my sketchbook. I did 2 spreads because Mitch and I went to Winchester on a day out, and I drew at the top of St. Catherine's Hill. So this was for a Patreon video where I showed my entire process for creating these plein air. So I took my tripod with me and we filmed the process. And I also filmed a bit afterwards about what I packed, how I pack for plein air drawing, which just means drawing outside in French, and also what I didn't use. I tend to pack a lot because I don't mind filling up my rucksack, and I just talked through what I did and didn't use that day. So this was the first one I did. Obviously, being on top of a hill, there was a huge panorama of the city, and it was a very intense view. There was a lot there, so this one is quite messy and I'm not massively pleased with it. It's very scribbly, but I thought it was interesting in trying to work out how to do the buildings without drawing in every single detail. I do like the foreground colour here, and like I've just sort of put in blocks of colour for the buildings rather than doing every single roof. I used a mix of brush pens here, near colours and coloured pencils, so I didn't take gouache or paint or wet media with me this day. And although this one isn't my favourite, I had to do this to then move on to the next spread, which looks like this. And I've fallen back into my panels again because I really enjoy working in this way, and it helped me to narrow down the view. So I took that larger view, we didn't move, I was still sat in the same place, and then I took this slice and then sort of focused in and zoomed in closer in terms of what I was drawing, did this one and then this one. So this one on the left has this lovely red crane which really kept catching my eye, and I wanted to draw that here. I didn't have like the perfect red with me, so I just used this darker rusty red near colour I had. And I'm really pleased with the sky here. It was starting to get a little bit cloudier, and I find this more interesting than blue skies now. And then this one was the next one that I did, and I really like the pink I've added into the foreground there, and you can see it's a slightly closer view. And then this one at the bottom was the last one I did, and you can see it's got even closer again. So in the foreground I've actually added the flowers that were there, and then this lovely tree, and then barely any buildings back there, but I think you can tell it's like all one view but sort of zoomed in more. The thing I really like about this one is that I've left some negative space, and you can still tell that they're bushes, but I didn't need to fill them in completely. So I really like seeing how it went from like this view to these smaller ones, and I like how they work together, but this one is definitely my preferred spread. Day 265 was a little loose painting that I did, which was slightly smaller than A5, and I don't have it to hand because I actually put it on my Etsy shop and it's sold, so that's on its way to America now. But I did film these close-ups before I sent it off. And I was really pleased with this one. I was super happy with the sky. This was obviously a culmination of a lot of my experiments in those stormy sky pieces, and like not just doing blue skies, which was always my default. And you can really see that influence here, and I'm really pleased with how this one turned out because it's not stormy. It still feels quite peaceful, but there was a lot of colours in the sky there with all the clouds. And I really like the line work on the fields, and I really like the brush marks, so you can see that with the bushes. On the reference picture there was just a tree on the horizon line, but obviously I really enjoy doing little buildings and things, so I actually added on this little barn and some trees, and I added those on with collage. So I cut those tiny little pieces from my paint palette sheets, which is what I use for collage, and glued those on top. and I think that really added a lot of narrative and life to the piece, and I preferred that to just having the tree. And overall I was really happy with this one, and I was so chuffed when it sold. Feels really like my next step is to like branch into selling originals and things, so that's definitely something that I'm going to be focusing on in my Etsy shop, and was really, really pleased to have sold my first original on Etsy. So day 266 I was back in my sketchbook, and I kind of just threw everything at this one but had a lot of fun playing. So there's a lot of colour in this. You can see this really vibrant greeny turquoise, and I did that with this acrylic ink. So this is the only acrylic ink that I have, and I haven't used this since last year, I think. So I wanted to try that out, and I just really love the vibrancy of it. And you can see that really impacted the saturation of the rest of the bay around it. One of the things I'm really pleased with on this one is the colour of the sky. It's this lovely sort of muted sunset tone, and again I didn't want to just do the blue sky, and the reference had this really nice lighting, so I wanted to try and capture that here. There's a lot of texture. I used gouache, acrylic ink, I think I put some acrylic down first as well, and then Neocolours, Prismacolors, basically everything that I usually use, and I threw it all at this one as well as the acrylic ink. And I also added some collage, and I just had so much fun. You can kind of tell I've thrown everything at it, but I think it does work. And it was just a really playful, fun piece, and it reminded me why I create. This is the way I love to create, and it was just really joyful, and I do think that comes through. So I will link the reference picture down below, but it was just this bay. So I added on this house down here, and also this foliage in the foreground. I think that really helps to distance the rest of the picture from here. This isn't something that I would normally do. I would usually just do it like that, but I think it does work having this here. And when I first put on the paint, I thought it was a mistake, but with the details, I think it does work. And yeah, I was just really pleased with this one. I think you can tell I enjoyed it, and the joy that I got from creating this one is definitely something I want to do more of. And I think it's just important to sometimes just get all your materials out, throw it at a page, and just enjoy the process rather than worrying about the end result. Day 267 is another panel spread again in my A5 sketchbook, and this was using photos which I took from our day out in Winchester earlier that week, but these ones weren't done plein air. And I'm really happy with these. Obviously I feel very comfortable working in panels, but for this one I only used Neocolours. So it was actually a really busy day this day, and I allowed myself half an hour to do the daily art. I did actually go over, so this in total took 40 minutes, but it was a really nice quick one, and I really love the boldness of how this one turned out. I really like the brightness of the colours, which obviously comes from the Neocolours, but I feel like I still captured quite a lot of detail despite using those really thick, like nibbed Neocolours. I don't sharpen them, so they are quite hard to get precise details. So I was really happy with how this turned out, and I think it has a lot of character. These are views from around the city, so this one is actually from up on the hill, and then the others were walking around, like in the city, around the cathedral grounds and in the deanery garden. And I'm just really pleased with how it turned out. I think the colour palette really works. I wasn't using a limited colour palette. You can see I've added like orange and purple and pastel pink, but I think it works all together. And considering this was such a quick one, I do think it was really effective, and again another one I really enjoyed creating. Day 268 was day 3 of our Swiss road trip, so back in the 12x12 sketchbook, and I created this spread. So on this day we were exploring the capital of Bern, and I really like how this spread looks. I think it does work well together. Again, once I'd done the first one I wasn't sure because it didn't exactly look how I wanted in my head, but when I added on the second view I think it really pulled it all together. So this one is on the bridge looking towards the old town, and then this one on the right is in the rose garden. So these were again done with gouache, and then I added on details with coloured pencils and Neocolours, and I think that they do work together, especially because like the sky is the same and the horizon is the same, which actually wasn't planned, but I think it works well because it really draws your eye from one to the other. I'm happy with the water in this one and all the little roofs. I think that works really nicely. And then I think this one is, again, my favourite. I think clearly I always use this one as a warm-up, and then I kind of get into my stride with this one. So I wonder whether to do a warm-up before I actually start these spreads. But it was really enjoyable to, again, do the polls and work out what I'm going to draw from your feedback. And this one has some lovely wisteria up here, so I really like the pop of purple again. And considering it was the rose garden, it didn't actually have any roses in it, so in the reference picture I used. So I added these here, and the red kind of does seem a little bit random, but to me, the first thought of roses are red roses, so I'm glad that I added those in, because I think that adds a bit of context to where we are. And overall, I really like this spread. It's cute, and I'm really still enjoying the Swiss road trip. Obviously, we have quite a few more weeks to go. We're doing a full tour of the whole of Switzerland, and these ones are quite urban, so we are moving into the mountains and the Alps next week and going forward, so I'm looking forward to creating and painting those views too. So the last one for week 45 was day 269, and I created in my 12x12 again. So I have sort of broken up the spreads of my Swiss road trip with this one, but I'm not too bothered about them not going in sequence. It was another very busy day, so I wanted to do something quick, and these were done plein air because I had to go into town, and I just sat in the park and drew these views I could see. So I feel like you can really see the summer colours. It was the hottest day of the year on this day, and I was really happy with the lemon yellow green I was using for the grass. I think that works really well and captures the light. This was the Isaac Watts statue that I was sat in front of, and it had the trees behind and some high rises in the distance. And I didn't have a huge amount of colours with me, I just grabbed what I could. I didn't take my whole set of Neocolours or anything. And this was mostly done with Neocolours and a bit of brush pen, and then a tiny bit of detail with coloured pencil. But I would have done this lamppost in black if I'd had a black pencil, but I didn't, so I used this navy. And I think that works really well because I think it would have been too harsh if I'd actually done it in black. So that worked out nicely. And then this one is my favourite. I really love the way the tree sort of borders the image, and I like the sky holes from the tree coming through. I really like these blue, and there was a lot of buildings behind there, but I really narrowed it down and just put in this little fence, and I think that works really well. And I've just sort of put the shadows and the suggestion of buildings back there, and I think that works really nicely. Again, I really like the shadow under the tree and the lighting captured. So this was a quick half an hour in the park, but I really am pleased with how these turned out because I think it captures the day really nicely. They are quite loose and messy, but yeah, I'm really pleased with this one. So that wraps up weeks 44 and 45 of my daily art challenge. I always share my favourite of the 2 weeks at the end of these videos, and I always ask for you to share yours because they're always different. So for me, I think it would be this one, just because I know I had a lot of fun with creating this one, throwing everything at it, and not really caring about the end result. I'm really happy with the colours and the brush strokes, and this one was just really enjoyable for me. And I'd love to hear which is your favourite down below in the comments. So as I said, I do create 6 days a week and post them daily over on Instagram, but I'll also be back in 2 weeks to do another roundup for weeks 46 and 47. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next Sunday with a new video. See you later.